Lay everything on the table. How much do you make? How much do you spend in groceries? How much are your utility bills? How much is your living expense, whether you're renting or paying a mortgage? All of those are very important.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Mindset and Wealth. I'm your host, Jose Cereceres, and with me, always, my beautiful wife.
Denice.
And today, we want to talk about budgeting. And obviously, in a relationship, that's a big subject for any relationships. You know, have a budget as a family is super important. But also, as a solo person, if you're single, obviously, having a good budget for yourself is super important. So I want to give you guys a little bit of our story, how we started. I'll tell you what. Obviously, we were not necessarily on the same page when it comes to our budgeting, and it had to do a lot with how do we grow up. But I'll let Denice talk a little bit more about that.
Honestly, I think when immediately after we got married, we quickly realized that we had two completely different ways or perspectives of our finances. So just to give you some insight, okay, I guess when I took out my student grants, I also took out student loans, and I did not know that I had taken out student loans. I don't know how that happened, guys. Okay. But
Sure.
The point of the matter is that I had quite a bit of student loan debt. So I remember us getting married, and immediately Jose wanting to, apply to purchase a home, and my student loans were an issue. So I think that immediately after we got married, we realized our finances, our styles were completely opposite.
Yeah. So I grew up in Mexico. Back then, if you have $20 on your pocket, then you're able to do something. If you didn't, then you have no opportunity to do anything, right? So for me, it was quite different because if it was cash back then, it was only cash. Debit cards or credit cards was something that only very, very wealthy people had in Mexico. Mm-hmm. In our town, it was not something that we had never used. It was cash. Cash was king. And so obviously I moved here and I have that perspective of like, if I have money, then I'm able to spend the money. Where here, the culture was already of credit cards and using money, borrow money. Whether you were getting paid Friday, but you could use the money today, why not? And a lot of the times that's what happened. I should have run a credit report on you and see what your
He should have, but was. He didn't. He did not run my credit before we got married.
Too late. Before you get married. I'm just kidding.
Before you get married, check their credit.
Check their credit. And I think it was fascinating to me and kind of frustrating to me to see the perspective. I think I remember one time that, we were talking and you had, well, I'm going to get paid Friday, and that was truly happened that way. You're gonna get paid Friday, so you spent all of your money prior to that Friday, and you had a payment on the first. And for you, the first was like, the first is down the line. That's later. So you have and you spent all the money you had at that point. And for me, it was like, hold on a second. If I have a payment on the first, and I don't get paid until like days after the first, then that means that the money that I have right now in my pocket is the one that I need to utilize to make that payment. For you was, I have money now, my payment is not until the first, I'm going to spend it all. And then once the first is here, let's figure that out along the line, and that's how I feel like a lot of people get in debt because of that. A lot of people are constantly having financial issues because of that mentality. And granted, I think you used to tell me that I was kind of boring because I didn't do anything unless I had money. You definitely have to have a little bit of...
You have to have a balance, in my opinion.
You definitely have to have a balance. I totally agree with that. But yeah, I think it's definitely... It was a culture shock for me to see how things were managed here differently compared to Mexico. Like my dad always taught me, like, hey, if you have the money, he was always very structured about saving money to continue to build his business and continue to moving forward in his business. And for him, like even today, I go there and he has like different pockets of money everywhere, and he has them for different reasons that he has to do, and then he has the pocket to continue living and doing the things he has to do. And his way of managing money is fantastic in my point of view. And so that's definitely like a big culture shock compared to the way things are driven sometimes in here. I wish we have or we had in schools a way to teach our kids like,
Yeah.
hey, about money, about finances, about, hey, you got to make sure you spend your money. I see this on my kids. Emma, great at saving money.
Yeah.
You give it $20 and she tells me, hey, save 10, and I will spend 10. And then she, the other day, I think we were going to open a bank account for her finally. And I thought she only had like $100 or something. And I don't know where, but she went
had
to every
cash.
cubicle and everywhere. She had like $500. And I was like, oh, okay. So we went and opened the account for her, no issue. With my son, Antonio,
Yeah.
forget about it. He
different.
gets $20 and he wants to spend 25.
Yes.
And it's a struggle for him. And then he goes to you and says like, hey, Mom, I want to buy this. And you go ahead and do it. And I was like, oh
his
my
thing
God.
his thing is always like, Mom, can I tap into my Domingo? I know it's not Domingo yet, but can I borrow money from my Domingo? I promise I will pay you back.
I
But,
see
yeah.
so much Emma and me, and I see so much Antonio and you. that-
Antonio's a lot of fun, and Emma too, but Emma's very careful with her money. But yes, they as you can see, even as a child, you already, I think, develop a system on how you're gonna manage your money. So yeah, no, when we got married, there was a lot of disconnect when it came to our finances, and it was a constant battle. And as much as I wanted to adapt to your techniques and your way of doing the finances, we would always have issues, right? So I would try his way and I would get so frustrated because I felt like I was like in a cage. Like I was working and I was independent in that way, but like I depended on you to tell me whether or not I can spend my own money. Well, that's the way I saw it back then, right?
Sure.
So it was like a
I
continuous
think I remember
cycle.
you used to say to me, like, if I work so hard for this money, how come I not spend it?
Yeah, how come I can't spend it?
And I was like, because we have responsibilities too.
Yeah.
Obviously, we work hard, but then we have responsibilities that we ourselves
Yeah.
put ourselves into that responsibility, or we chose to have that responsibility. So we have to become responsible for that, right?
And I agree to all of that, but I think it's also important to acknowledge the other
We still
side.
have different opinions, as you might
because
see.
we have different perspectives of money. Like I'm very like abundant, and let's do this and let's do that, right? And the key here is balance. Because honestly, if it was all to your side, great, there would be a lot of money in the bank, but it would be very boring. And if it was all mine, we would be broke all the time. I get it, right? So that's why balance was so important. And I remember we got to a place where we're like, man, if we cannot agree how we're going to deal with our finances, we have to talk about maybe we're not meant to be together. It was that heavy. Honestly, money and our finances was so heavy that was a decision factor whether or not we could continue to stay married. And luckily, that's when we found the Dave Ramsey course that your sister Perla had encouraged us to take, and that was life-changing. That was really, really good. Do you remember when we...
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that was a very that was one of the points where obviously we were having constant financial issues, and luckily enough, we find that program. It was really good.
It was really
I think this guy has Dave has really great concepts of things to do and stuff like that. I know sometimes people think he's a little bit over the top, which I get it.
Yeah.
But the main concepts of getting out of debt and working through that is, I think, they're very basic and very good for any family to start working with. So I think that's, if you're working on your budget or you're struggling with the budget, I think it's important for you to take a look at that to start with. I think that's a very good basic to start with, and then from there building. I agree with you. I think my way might have been a little too boring. We probably would never go out.
Yeah.
We had a lot of money in the back. But to my point, if you recall, back in the day, before we got married, I used to, give you a lot of gifts and do a lot of stuff because I had the money to do so. So I was fun when I had the money to be fun, right? But anyways, I think it's important to have both perspective, and I do see that obviously you work hard, we do a lot of things, and we want to have fun. We want to have fun with the kids, but to find that balance between like, hey, let's have fun, but at the same time, let's enjoy what we have and what we have built.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's so much easier when you have a base, a foundation to start with, and then from that foundation, start taking you to do the things. So great, we had a foundation, we have money saved in the case, And at that time, okay, so if I have money saved, now I'm able to do things, I'm able to have fun and
Yeah.
not so worried. Because for me, obviously, not have any money, have very little money in the bank or nothing at all, it becomes something frustrated, right?
stressful.
It's a stressful situation where I know some people, they're negative on their accounts and they don't think nothing of it.
Yeah.
You
Doesn't
know,
bother them.
which is like, for me, is like how, right?
Yeah.
But I think the fundamental is to start on something that it can be built from
Yeah.
there. And I think Dave, the program from Dave really helped us in that regards.
Yeah, because honestly, it's like it's 7 really easy steps, and they're attainable. So we're gonna share some steps with you guys that we were able to manage, and honestly, it's been a game changer because then we're able to do both things, right? The saving and the spending. And I don't know why this happens, but I feel like most couples, one's the spender and one's the saver. It like never fails. I have hardly ever met two that are the same. There's always one that is a little bit more of a saver, a little bit more than of a spender. But do you wanna start the steps or?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So and almost by heart, but the
Almost by heart.
so I think the first thing for anybody to start, if you're gonna start a budget, it's important to have like a small savings for any emergencies. I think there's $1,000 to start with, and it might be a little different. Maybe you want to do $2,000 now these days, because $1,000 used to be back in the
That's
day.
true.
So now probably it's going to be $2,000 based on current situation. So you want to save as much as you can, $2,000. I remember when we started this program, we did a lot of stuff. We sold things. We got rid of many things to be able to build the budget first and build the savings first, and then start working on step number 2. So I think that number 1 is to have a savings. Why $2,000 on a savings? Or if you already have it, great. But a lot of the times what I see happening, and funny enough, this conversation I have with a lot of clients all day long when they have issues with credit, they have issues with, they try to buy a property, but obviously credit has been an issue or finances has been an issue, and this always comes up. So I think the first thing is you want to have that $2,000 savings.
Yeah.
So if something happens, because life always happens, like the car broke down, you need tires, you need this, the kids need clothing for school, you name it, things happen that you have not budgeted for.
Yeah.
So having the $2,000 savings for emergencies are super important.
Yeah.
So that way you don't have to go use your credit card. I think that's key.
Yeah.
You want to have $2,000 saved so you don't have to go use your credit cards. I think that's important. Once you have that $2,000, then you can work on the next step. And the next step is to start working on your credit debt. And same thing, this conversation, I just had it 3 days ago with a client. She was telling me, Jose, I want to get out of debt. I want to buy a house, but I have too many credit cards. I think she had like 9 credit cards, varying from I think the highest that she had was 17 grand all the way to like $3,000. And she was telling me, well, someone told me to pay the credit card with the highest interest rate, and she was never able to find a rhythm. She was never able to find a way to pay that off, and she was constantly going back and forth. So I mentioned that to her, that step number 2 would be to work on what's called the snowball effect. The snowball effect is putting all the credit cards in order, all your debts in order from the highest to the lowest.
No, I think it's the opposite, no?
No. It's from the highest to, trust me, I know. It's from the highest to the lowest.
I mean, when you build a snowball, you start with the small. Okay, keep going.
That is correct. I didn't say that you're going to start with the highest.
Okay, you list the highest.
Yeah, highest from the
Okay.
lowest, and you start working on the lowest credit card.
Okay.
So in her case, I think the lowest credit card was $300. So I mentioned to her, look, make minimum payments on every single one of those credit cards, minimum payments on all, but the last one. On the last one, you're going to concentrate all your money. If you have extra money, that's where you're going to put it in. Don't worry about the other ones. Just do minimum payments on all of them, on time, of course, be on time, and then start paying. Sell something, get rid of some stuff at your house. If you're really serious about getting rid of debt, I can guarantee you probably find a lot of things on your house that you guys don't really need. So we can talk about something that was very critical for me. But anyways, start with that. So pay that credit card. Once you pay that credit card, let's say that credit card was $50 a month. You pay that credit card, you pass those $50 to the next one. Let's say the next credit card is also $50. So now, because you already paid the first one, you should be paying $100 minimum into that second credit card. And then any extra money you get, any bonuses you get, then you apply to that credit card. Once you pay the second one, you move to the next. if we're using $50 again as an example,
Yeah.
so the next one now is going to be 150, and so on and so forth. You building that. The cool thing about this concept, and I like it a lot, is that it builds momentum for you. You
does.
feel accomplished that you
Yes.
just paid off a credit card. Okay, that feels good. Now I have 9. Now I have 8. Okay, great. Now you work on the next, and then you work on the next, and so on and so forth. And the good thing is they're all getting paid as we
Yeah.
speak, right? They're all getting paid as you're working through them. Obviously, working on the little ones so you can pay them faster. That's number 2. I think that's the best way I've seen for people to get rid of that.
And to add into the number 2, I remember that when we made the commitment, we cut all of our credit cards. And to me, I was like,
that's right.
but what if I have an emergency? Like, what am I going to do? There's not an emergency that serious where, so we cut the credit cards, and then we had an emergency fund for those emergencies, right? The other thing that was key for us, because I mean, a lot of people, a lot of families are living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, the cost of living has, it's astronomical. I can't say that word. It's expensive right now. Okay. The cost of living is expensive, right? Exactly. But it's expensive right now. But one thing that really helped us, I remember back then, we started creating a budget where like our grocery money, our spending money, all that was in cash. And there's something psychological that happens when you spend the cash. Like when you are, spending those $20 and you're giving away the $20 and you already know that you have, I don't know, $100 left on that envelope. It feels different. Whereas when you swipe your card, there's really no feeling because you're not seeing the deduction, right? So what really helped us was to manage cash because we had the envelope system. And the envelope system basically just means you put all of your expenses and you put them in a category, right? And you have the envelope. I remember sometimes wanting to go buy something like groceries or whatever, and there was like no money left. And I'm like, what are we going to do? But really, you got to spend wisely, right? So cash really worked out. Right now, we're also trying to be very, well, it might not seem this way, but I'm not trying to spend as much money. So now my groceries, I order them online because then it alleviates of like the little impulsive purchases when you're at the grocery store. If you already know what you typically cook during the week, just do it online and go pick up your groceries. Because if you go to the grocery store, especially if you go with your kids, you're gonna buy more snacks than what you really need.
Or at least don't go hungry.
Well, yeah, and I try not to go to the grocery store hungry because then I'll buy more stuff. But going back to the topic, like if your question is like, where am I going to find the extra money that Jose is talking about to even create this momentum of the snowball effect? And it's those little things, right? The unnecessary expenses that add up, and even though they're small, they create big habits.
So funny, you're talking about cash, using cash and using debit card. I just experienced this with Emma, and I was so happy that she realized this.
Yeah.
So she's always been very good at saving her money cash, and she has cash everywhere on her room and whatever the case. Any birthdays, she was saving her money. She was really good at saving it. And when it was time for her to buy something, she really thought it twice before buying this. Whatever she wanted to buy, she thought it twice. Sometimes we even went back to the store a couple times before she finally made the decision, right? So we go to the bank. Finally, she opened her bank account, put the money there, and she's like, "Dad, I want to go to buy I think it was like a
bracelet.
A bracelet." So I was like, "Okay, let's do that." So she went to the store. She bought the bracelet. She bought something else, and then we walk into the other store next door, and she bought it, and she was gone like $80 in like 10 minutes. She was like, "Dad, let's get out of here. Do not bring me to the store. This is, I cannot believe how quickly I spend this money. Don't give me the car." It's like, no, but that was the point of giving you the car. And this is a good lesson for you to learn, to understand, to manage your money well. And yeah, you're right. Having the money cash has a different feeling, right?
Yes.
It's like, yeah, I know, it's crazy. And it does. And I was super happy to listen to her because I see that she understood that.
Yeah.
That how quickly you can using the debit card seems so easy.
Yes.
That you don't think, but then when you have the money cash and kind of give it away, it's like, hold on a second, I don't want to give my cash away.
It's a different feeling.
Right? It's a different feeling.
Yeah.
So I think that's the envelope system works so well. Is your money at the end of the day, But if you don't have money on that envelope, it doesn't work. We're using now a new concept. I implemented this new concept about, it's called Profit First. I love that book, which I just read it last year. I was introduced to it, and it talks about the same concept, separating your money on buckets. And if you don't have money on that bucket, you can't use it. And if you can't use it, that means that's it. And it resonates so much with me because that's how I grew up.
Yeah.
I had money in my pocket. I was able to spend it on the weekends with my friends. If I didn't, guess what? I didn't.
And I think that especially nowadays, that's not very common, right? Because everything's so electronic, everything's immediate. You need something, Amazon, is right on ready for you to order. But taking it back to basics, like where we were managing cash, honestly, guys, if that's what it takes to get your money straight, that's what it takes. The envelope system really, really worked out for us. And at least for me, right? I did, let's be honest, had a spending problem. I think that's the only way I really did realize, like, okay, I'm spending way more. Okay, maybe I still have it a little bit, but it's under control.
I'm just kidding.
But, envelope system, if you guys need any ideas, definitely reach out to us and we can, take you through. But creating that budget, once you create your budget, then you create the envelope system, which I don't think this is part of the steps, but that's very necessary to even start paying off the debt.
Correct.
Right? Because you need to find the excess money.
One thing that we didn't talk about, if your partner, it is so crucial to have your partner with you in this. I'm actually talking to a friend of mine where, we have a couple of discussions because I share with him the budget and things like that. And I asked this question like, okay, so do you know how much money she makes? Do you know the expenses that she has? Do you know the credit card she has? Like, I have no clue. It's like, dude, that's the first thing you need to find out. What about her? That she knows your expenses? No, she doesn't. She asks me for money and I just give her money. But for what? You're giving her money to pay. Well, she says to pay bills. And it's about what bills? How much money you owe? What is she paying? It's like, well, I don't know. I just give her the money. And I was like, okay. There's usually one person in a relationship who handles the bills and handles the finances. And I understand that. But at the same time, I was like, no, dude, you guys need to sit down as a couple and really see all your debts. Because he's clueless. He doesn't know if she has one credit card, two or three. She doesn't know if he has credit cards, 1, 2, or 3, and how much money they had. And for me, I was blown away. I was like, dude, this is the first thing you need to go do is you're going to go sit down right now and figure it out what is you guys' thing. So I think as a couple, first step will be to sit down, put everything on the table. I know it might be a little challenging and kind of like embarrassing even to speak about the debts that you have, but if you're married, if you're in a relationship, that is crucial for you guys to be very transparent with each other and discuss it. I know we had many discussions about this, and yes, there's been a lot of confrontations, but definitely we always been an open book in regards to that. Or finances us always work as one, not as two different separate things. I also believe that in a relationship, in a marriage, the money should be combined. It's not my money. It's not your money. It's the family's. It's all combined. And then from there, you go from there. And I think that has worked for us fantastic. And I think that's probably the first thing. If you're in a relationship, sit down, discuss, talk about where you're at. And then from there, obviously work together to accomplish this.
Yeah. And in there, just know that even though we combine our income and our expenses, you do still have a little bit of independency because we each have our blow away money, right? So we get to do with it's called blow away money, right?
That's
so
the way
our
we call it.
own
You can call it
budget,
anyway,
right?
But yeah.
Our own budget, like you have your own individual budget for you and you get to do whatever you want with that money. So you don't lose your independency, but at the same time, if you are both working on it separately, you're only going to get so far because it's two different budgets. It needs to be one budget, in my opinion.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a lot of couples friends that that's exactly what they do. They said, okay, so you have $700 or you have $1,000 a week to spend on whatever, go whatever you want to buy. It doesn't really matter because it's already budgeted for you to do so. So you can go eat or you went to the store and decided to buy some chips or whatever the case may be. That's fine. It's already there for you to do so. And that way you have a little bit of independence, like you said, right? You feel like you can do something, but it's within the guidelines of the money and the finances that you have.
Yep. So I think we just obviously wrap up with number 3, and maybe next time we'll do the investment side. But the third one is really, really good. It takes a while to get there, but the third one just gives you so much more peace of mind, right? So you've
For me.
already
Yes.
you've already saved your emergency fund, right? Which we had discussed. We do encourage about 2,000, 2,500. Pay off all your credit cards. So you do have to pay off your credit cards to be able to get to step number 3. And step number 3 is to save 3 to 6 months of your expenses and savings. And that, honestly, well, if you're like Jose, it allows him to sleep at night, because if he didn't have that cushion, especially with us that we're self-employed, you don't have a steady paycheck to come in. So it's so important to know that you have 3 to 6 months just in case. And that goes for people that are salary too, that work for corporate America. You never know if a company decides to part ways. You need to have 3 to 6 months in your expenses. And the only way you're going to uncover how much you need is from creating that plan, right? That budget. Like lay everything on the table. How much do you make? How much do you spend in groceries? How much are your utility bills? How much is your living expense, whether you're renting or paying a mortgage? All of those are very important to put them on paper and create a plan together.
Correct. And start with knowing your expenses, your personal expenses. If you have a business, your business expenses, and have it on a budget. We have a budget for my business. We have a budget for your business, and we have a personal budget for the family business. And we know how much it takes to run our household, right? To buy groceries, the kids, and everything else. And that's super important to know, because some people don't even know how much money you spend a month on your house. Like, well, I don't know. I think that's crucial to start with, knowing, hey, this is how much it takes us. And the other big question people need to ask themselves, like, hey, I'm spending 10 grand as an example, 10 grand a month on my house expenses, and I only make 8. Well, that's your problem right there. At that time, you have to start adjusting immediately your expenses. If you're spending 10 grand, but you're only making 8, obviously that's the reason why you're broke. So you got to switch that right away.
Yeah.
That you got to switch that right away and say, like, okay, so, and I think that's why so many people are scared to do that, because they're scared to know, oh shit, I'm spending more than I'm making.
Yeah.
But if you want to get out of debt and you want to have something better for you and your family, that's number one. Hey, how much I'm spending a month? Okay. And then compared to how much money I'm making, and that's going to tell you right there if there's a difference, if you're making money or not after that, if you're able to save money. Once you do that, then start working. If you're making too much or you're spending too much, then obviously you got to shrink that down. If you're making enough and you're making way more than what you're spending, so where all that money is going?
Yeah.
Maybe you don't have a plan. You don't have a plan to save. You don't have a plan to invest, and that's maybe the area you got to work. But you got to know where you're at first from there make a determination where you need to go. Another big thing too, I was talking to another friend of mine, and he was like, hey, so why do I need to wait to invest? Why to wait to invest when I have, because I was talking to him about paying all the credit cards. So like, hey, I'd rather want to start investing now. It's like, what is the normal interest rate on that credit card? I've seen credit cards like 18%, 20%. It's like, that's why you want to pay a credit card off first before doing an investment, because then 18% on interest rate.
Yeah.
An investment, maybe you can get 10%, 7%.
Yeah.
So you're going to get more money for your buck by paying off the credit card first before you jump into investment.
That's actually really true. Like, it's weird how we think, let me invest and then I'll pay off the credit cards. But it's so essential for you to get out of those debts that are just obviously consuming unnecessary interest, right? So the other thing that I wanted to share with you guys, just to conclude this budget podcast, it gets better. So we did have to work super hard at the beginning. It is not in my nature to want to do the finances and the budget and understand all these things. But after we got the rhythm of it, to me, it seems like Jose enjoys it. So now he takes full ownership of the budget. I know how much I have to spend and I stick to that. So there's things such as like, I know my monthly budget. I know that he likes to get receipts so he can balance the books. And that is my role now. But now I can let go, enjoy life. So now he has what he needs, right? The budget is aligned. And now I get to have the liberty of not having to deal with the finances.
That's true.
Yeah. Guys, thank you so much for staying until the end. Please make sure to follow us on our social media. And we'll see you next time on Mindset and Wealth, where we help one another build an empire.